The blood splattered across Penelope Zhao's white sneakers was still warm when the stranger's voice cut through the alleyway like ice through bone. Run! She didn't need to be told twice. The thing that had been following her from the subway, the creature with 2 long limbs and eyes that reflected streetlight like a cat's, had just torn apart a man in front of her. The stranger who'd spoken, pale as moonlight with hair like fresh snow, stood between her and the monster, and Penelope's survival instinct screamed at her to move. She bolted, her messenger bag slamming against her hip as her feet pounded against wet pavement. Behind her, sounds she couldn't identify and didn't want to echoed off brick walls. She ran for 6 blocks before her lungs gave out, collapsing against a closed storefront, gasping, shaking, pulling out her phone with trembling fingers. The screen was cracked. When had that happened? She tried to dial 911, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking long enough to hit the right numbers. You didn't make it very far. Penelope's scream caught in her throat. The pale stranger stood 5 feet away, impossibly still, impossibly clean. No blood. No evidence of whatever violence had occurred in that alley. Just a man, if he was a man, dressed in black clothing that looked expensive even in the sodium glow of streetlights. His eyes were dark red like garnets, like wine held up to candlelight. "Stay away from me," she managed, her voice cracking. "You'll what?" His accent was old European, impossible to place. "Call for help, the police wouldn't arrive in time. Scream? There's no one close enough to hear. Run again?" He tilted his head, and something about the gesture was profoundly inhuman despite his beautiful face. "You're exhausted. Your heart is racing. You'd make it perhaps another block before it gave out entirely. What do you want?" Penelope pressed herself against the storefront glass, wishing she could melt through it. His expression shifted, something like frustration crossing those perfect features. "I want you to stay alive, you foolish girl. That's why I told you to run. You were supposed to get far enough away that you wouldn't be a liability." "A liability? There was a thing. It killed someone and you—" The words tumbled out incoherently. "That thing was a feral vampire, abandoned by its maker, starving, mindless. I destroyed it." He said it matter-of-factly, the way someone might mention taking out the trash. "And now I'm left with you, a witness who saw far too much and didn't have the sense to run properly when given the chance." Vampire. The word sat in the air between them like a stone. Penelope's laugh came out half hysterical. "This is insane. Vampires aren't real. I'm having a breakdown. I'm in shock." "That's what this is. Believe whatever helps you sleep tonight," he said, turning away. "Go home, Penelope Zhao. Forget what you saw. And for your own sake, stay out of the Lower West Side after dark." She should have let him leave, should have counted her blessings and run the other direction. Instead, her mouth opened, and different words came out. "How do you know my name?" He paused, glanced back over his shoulder. In the streetlight, his hair looked like spun silver, his skin like marble. "Your identification card fell out of your bag when you ran. I picked it up." He pulled out her driver's license, holding it up between 2 fingers. "You're 23, you live on Harmon Street, and you're an organ donor. How very generous." The way he said the last part made her skin crawl. She stepped forward, hand outstretched. "Give it back. Come take it." It was clearly a test. Penelope's rational mind screamed at her to leave it, to get a replacement, to run. But her license had her address, her information, and something stubborn in her refused to leave it in the hands of this dangerous, unsettling creature. She walked toward him, each step feeling like wading through deep water. He watched her approach with those wine-dark eyes, utterly still. When she was close enough to touch him, she grabbed for the license. His hand closed around her wrist, not painfully, but with unmistakable strength. Cold. His skin was so cold. "You have more courage than sense," he said quietly. "That will either save you or kill you. Let go of me. Answer me one question first." He hadn't released her wrist. "Why were you in that alley?" "It's 3 in the morning. That area has been marked as hunting ground for the ferals for weeks." "I work late shifts at the hospital," Penelope said, hating how her voice shook. "The subway was delayed. I was trying to take a shortcut home. I didn't know. I've never seen anything like that before in my life." Something shifted in his expression. "You work at St. Catherine's? How did you your badge? It's clipped to your bag." He released her wrist, pressing the license into her palm. "Go home. Take the main streets. Don't stop. Don't speak to anyone. If you see anyone with white hair and pale skin, cross the street and keep walking. Are they all like you?" "No," he said, and for the first time something like emotion entered his voice. "Some are far worse. The one I killed tonight was nothing, a mindless beast. The ones who still have their reason are infinitely more dangerous. And you?" His smile was terrible and beautiful. "I am the most dangerous of all, Penelope Zhao, which is precisely why you should go now, while I'm still inclined to let you." She went. The next 3 days passed in a blur of double shifts and insomnia. Penelope told herself it had been a hallucination, a stress-induced break from reality. She'd been working 70-hour weeks in the pediatric ward, barely sleeping, living on coffee and granola bars. Of course, her mind had conjured monsters and vampires and beautiful, terrifying strangers. Except the blood on her sneakers had been real. She'd thrown them away. And on the fourth night, when she left St. Catherine's at 2 a.m, she saw him again. He stood across the street from the hospital entrance, barely visible in the shadow of a closed bank. But she knew him instantly, that preternatural stillness, that white hair catching ambient light. He was watching the building, watching her. Penelope's first instinct was to go back inside, to call security, to hide. Instead, powered by 4 days of sleep-deprived anxiety and the reckless anger that came with it, she marched across the street toward him. "Are you following me?" He looked genuinely surprised to see her coming toward him rather than running away. "You really are determined to prove my point about courage and sense. Are you following me?" she repeated. "Yes." The blunt honesty startled her. "Why?" "Because 3 of our kind have gone missing in this district in the last month. Because the ferals are getting bolder. Because you're a loose end that I haven't decided what to do with yet." He stepped out of the shadows, and she saw he was dressed differently tonight, still all black, but more casual. Expensive jeans, a shirt that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "And because you smell like blood and exhaustion, and you're going to get yourself killed walking home alone." "I've been walking home alone for 2 years. 2 years ago, there wasn't a war brewing in the vampire courts that's spilling over into human territory," he said sharply. "Things have changed, the rules have broken down, and vulnerable humans wandering around in the dark are targets." "Then what am I supposed to do?" Penelope demanded. "I have to work. I have to get home. I can't just stop living my life because there are." She lowered her voice, glancing around the empty street. "Because there are vampires." He studied her for a long moment. "I could compel you to forget, to remember nothing from that night. You'd be safer that way." "Compel me?" "Mental influence. It's within my capabilities." He said it casually, but something in his posture suggested he wasn't entirely comfortable with the idea. "You'd go home, sleep well, and wake up with no memory of ferals or vampires or me." Penelope's heart hammered. "But you haven't done it yet." "No, why not?" His expression was unreadable. "I haven't decided. In the meantime, I'll walk you home. Consider it insurance on my investment of time and energy." "I don't need Penelope." The way he said her name made her stop mid-sentence. "I am not asking. I am telling you that I am going to ensure you make it home safely. Because if you die tonight, it will be politically complicated for me. Accept this reality and walk." There was something almost funny about being ordered around by what was essentially a monster, but the combination of exhaustion and lingering fear made her too tired to argue. She started walking. He fell into step beside her, maintaining a careful distance of about 2 feet. They walked 3 blocks in silence before she asked, "Do you have a name?" "Several." "That's not an answer. My current name is Vladimiros Draculeshti. I've held it for approximately 600 years. Penelope nearly tripped over her own feet. 600? You're 600 years old? "No. I've held this particular name for 600 years. I'm considerably older than that." He said it the way someone might mention their college graduation date. "Does this disturb you?" "Everything about this disturbs me," she admitted. "But I think I'm too tired to process it properly. My brain just keeps trying to file you under weird dream and move on. A healthy coping mechanism. Is it true what the stories say? About sunlight and crosses and garlic?" "Sunlight, yes. It burns. Not to ash instantly like in your films, but enough to be excruciating and eventually fatal. Crosses and religious symbols have no effect whatsoever. That's human superstition. Garlic is merely unpleasant. We have heightened senses. Strong smells are irritating." He glanced at her. "Running water doesn't harm us. We can be captured in photographs and mirrors. We do need invitations to enter private residences, though that's more magical law than physical limitation. And blood? Necessary for survival. We can consume human food and drink if we choose, but it provides no sustenance. Only blood maintains our existence." His voice was clinical, detached. "Before you ask, I haven't killed a human for food in over 2 centuries. There are other arrangements now." "What kind of arrangements?" "Blood banks, willing donors, agreements with those who understand what we are. Civilization has progressed, so have we." They turned onto Harmon Street. "Which building is yours?" She pointed to the shabby 4-story walk-up. "3rd floor, 3B. He walked her to the door, waited while she dug out her keys. Under the porch light, his features were even more striking: high cheekbones, strong jaw, eyes that seemed to shift between red and deep brown depending on the angle. Beautiful in a way that made her uncomfortable, because it was beauty designed to lure and trap. Thank you, she said awkwardly, for walking me home and for before. Saving my life, I guess. Lock your doors, don't invite anyone inside. If you see anything unusual, anything at all that feels wrong, call this number. He handed her a card-heavy black cardstock with silver lettering. A phone number, nothing else. Someone will answer. Someone meaning you? Someone meaning one of my people. We're monitoring this area now. He turned to leave, then paused. Penelope, when I told you to run that night, it was not a threat. It was the kindest thing I could do for you in that moment. I need you to understand that. I do, she said, surprising herself. I understand now. He nodded once and then he was gone, not supernatural, disappearing, just walking away into the darkness with inhuman grace. Penelope went inside, locked both deadbolts, and fell into bed, still wearing her scrubs. She slept for 12 hours straight and woke up convinced it had all been a dream, right up until she found the black card on her nightstand. The next 2 weeks established a routine she never explicitly agreed to, but somehow accepted. Vladimiros, she couldn't think of him as anything else now, was waiting outside St. Catherine's every night when her shift ended. He walked her home without speaking much, answered her increasingly bold questions about vampire society with varying degrees of patience, and disappeared into the night once she was safely inside. She learned that vampires had complex hierarchies and ancient rules, that there were different bloodlines with different abilities, that Vladimiros was not just old and powerful, but something more, a king, though he disliked the title. That vampire society existed in a parallel world to humanity's, invisible but ever present, and that currently it was fracturing. There are those who want to maintain the old ways, he explained one night, 3 blocks from her apartment. Hunting humans freely, treating them as livestock, living as we did centuries ago. And there are those like me, who believe adaptation is necessary for survival. The world has changed. Humans have technology, weapons, communication networks. If we exposed ourselves through carelessness or cruelty, they would hunt us to extinction. So you're the good guys? Penelope asked skeptically. We're all monsters, Penelope. Some of us simply have longer-term planning skills. He glanced at her. The ferals you've been seeing are a symptom of the larger problem. Young vampires, abandoned by their makers in protest of the new rules. Their weapons as much as victims sent into human areas to create chaos, to prove that the old ways are superior. That's horrible. Yes, and it's getting worse. His jaw tightened. 3 more of my people disappeared last week. We found one of them yesterday, staked and left in a warehouse as a message. The old guard is making moves. Soon it will be open war, and humans will be caught in the crossfire. Penelope processed this in silence. They'd reached her building. Is that why you keep walking me home? Because I'm going to be caught in the crossfire? I keep walking you home because you witnessed something you shouldn't have, and both sides of this conflict would find value in either using you or eliminating you. He looked at her directly, and she saw something in his eyes she hadn't noticed before, genuine concern. You're a complication I should have erased immediately. The fact that I haven't makes you vulnerable. Why didn't you? Erase my memory, I mean. He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. That night, Penelope lay awake thinking about red eyes and careful distance, and the way Vladimiros always positioned himself between her and dark alleys. Thinking about how something that should terrify her had started to feel like safety. The attack came on a Tuesday. Penelope was leaving St. Catherine's at her usual time when she realized Vladimiros wasn't waiting in his customary spot. She stood outside the hospital entrance, holding the black card he'd given her, debating whether to call. Maybe he'd been delayed. Maybe he'd decided she wasn't his problem anymore. Maybe she should be relieved. Instead, she felt exposed, vulnerable. She started walking faster than usual, hyper-aware of every shadow. Made it 4 blocks before she knew she was being followed. Not the shambling, obvious menace of a feral. This was calculated, deliberate. She risked a glance back and saw 2 figures maintaining pace with her. Both pale, both inhumanly graceful. Penelope ran. She made it half a block before they were in front of her, moving faster than her eyes could track. The first one, a woman with white hair braided into an elaborate crown, looked amused. The little human King Vladimiros has been playing with, she said, her accent thick and Eastern European. We wondered if you were important or just a curiosity. I don't know what you're talking about, Penelope gasped, backing away. Her hand found her phone in her pocket. The second vampire male, younger looking, with scars across his face that should have killed him, laughed. She doesn't even know. He's kept her ignorant. How like him, thinking he can protect the weak by keeping them in darkness. We have a message for your king, the woman said, moving closer. Tell him the old blood will not bend. Tell him we will take back what is ours, and every human he's tried to shelter will burn. Tell him. She stopped mid-sentence, her head whipping around. A second later, Penelope heard it too, the sound of something moving fast, something massive and powerful. Then Vladimiros was there, and he was nothing like the controlled, careful creature who'd walked her home every night. He was terrifying. He moved like lightning, like violence personified. The male vampire went down first, Vladimiros's hand through his chest before he could react. The woman tried to run, but he caught her by the throat, lifting her off the ground. "You touched what's mine," he said, and his voice was death itself. "You threatened her. She's just a human," the woman choked out. "One fragile little human. Since when does Vladimiros Drokuleshti risk war over prey? Since I decided her life has value." He threw her into a brick wall hard enough to crack the mortar. "Take this message back to Constantine. If he sends anyone near her again, I will personally tear down every stronghold he has and scatter his ashes across continents. Do you understand?" The woman fled. The male vampire was not moving, a stake through his heart, already beginning to deteriorate into something ancient and dried. Vladimiros turned to Penelope, and his eyes were pure crimson now, bright as blood. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, unable to speak. Her entire body was shaking. He moved toward her and she flinched. He froze instantly, something like pain crossing his features. "Penelope, you killed him." Her voice came out small. He would have killed you without hesitation. They both would have." He held up his hands, showing her. They were clean again, impossibly clean despite what she'd just seen. "I need you to listen to me very carefully. You are in danger now. Real, immediate danger. They know about you, which means others will come. I can protect you, but you have to trust me." "Trust you? I know." His voice softened. "I know what I am, what I'm capable of. You've seen it now, the reality of what I am beneath the civilized veneer. But Penelope, I need you to hear me. I will not let them harm you. I swear it." "Why?" The question burst out of her. "Why do you care? I'm nobody, just some random nurse you happened to save. Why would you risk war for me?" He looked at her for a long moment, something vulnerable and ancient in his eyes. "Because when I told you to run that first night, you dropped your bag. And when I picked it up, I saw a photograph. You with what I assume were children from the hospital. You were wearing a costume, a princess dress, I think, making them smile. And I remembered what it was like to believe in protecting the innocent, before centuries of politics and survival made me forget." He stepped closer, slowly, giving her time to move away. "She didn't. Because you asked me questions instead of screaming. Because you're brave and stubborn and you work yourself to exhaustion taking care of others. Because when I'm near you, I remember what it felt like to be human." Penelope's breath caught. "Vlad, I'm going to take you somewhere safe," he said. "My home, my territory, where the old guard cannot reach you without triggering a war they're not yet ready to fight. Will you come with me? Do I have a choice?" "Yes," he said it firmly. "You always have a choice. I can erase your memory and relocate you, give you a new identity somewhere far from here. You'd be safe, you'd have a life, but you wouldn't remember any of this. Or you can come with me, keep your memories and your autonomy, and let me protect you until this conflict resolves." Penelope thought about her tiny apartment, her exhausting job, her non-existent social life. Thought about the children at the hospital who she'd have to abandon. Thought about the monster who'd walked her home every night for 2 weeks and never once touched her without permission. "If I come with you, what happens? You'll stay in my residence. It's secure, comfortable, far more luxurious than your current accommodations. You'll be under my protection, which means no vampire in this city would dare harm you. You'll be safe, fed, cared for. And when this is over, when the threat has passed, you can decide whether you want to return to your life or something else." "Something else?" He didn't answer directly. "The offer has no expiration date. Come with me now, Penelope. We can discuss the details somewhere that isn't an open street where you were just attacked." She should have said no, should have chosen the memory wipe and the fresh start. Instead, she heard herself say, "Okay, I'll come with you." The relief that crossed his face was startlingly human. Vladimiros's residence turned out to be a penthouse that occupied the entire top floor of the Obsidian Tower, the black glass building that dominated the city's financial district. Penelope had walked past it hundreds of times without realizing it housed vampire royalty. The elevator required a key to access the penthouse level. As they rode up in silence, Penelope became acutely aware that she was still wearing her scrubs, that she smelled like hospital antiseptic and fierce sweat, that she was about to enter the home of a creature who'd lived for centuries, and probably had standards she couldn't begin to meet. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse, and Penelope forgot to breathe. It was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, heavy blackout curtains currently drawn back to reveal the glittering lights below. The decor was modern, but with touches of old-world elegance, dark woods, rich fabrics, artwork that looked original and priceless. One entire wall was lined with books, thousands of them in dozens of languages. The windows are treated, Vladimiros said, noticing her gaze. Special glass that filters UV light. I can be in here during daylight hours without burning, though it's still uncomfortable. My actual sleeping quarters are below, in a sub-level with no windows. This is where you live? It seemed impossible, this beautiful space belonging to the controlled, careful creature she'd come to know. One of several residences. This is the most secure. He gestured toward a hallway. The guest suite is through there. Bedroom, bathroom, sitting room. Everything you need. I'll have clothing and toiletries brought up within the hour. I should call the hospital. Let them know I won't be in. Already handled. You're on emergency family leave, effective immediately. The paperwork is being filed as we speak. At her startled look, he added, I have people who manage such things. You won't lose your position. Penelope walked to the windows, looking out at the city. Somewhere down there was her apartment, her life, her normal world. Up here was safety and luxury and a vampire king who'd killed to protect her. What happens now? Now you rest. Recover from tonight's shock. Tomorrow we'll discuss the situation more thoroughly. He moved to a bar cart, poured something amber into a crystal glass. This will help you sleep. Just brandy, I promise. No vampire tricks. She took the glass, their fingers not quite touching. The woman tonight said something. About you keeping me ignorant. What did she mean? Vladimiros's expression tightened. There are political implications to my protecting you. Things I should explain, but not tonight. You've been through enough, tell me anyway. He studied her for a long moment, then sighed. In vampire society, when a king takes a human under his personal protection, it's not a casual decision, it's a declaration. It means that human is claimed, that any harm to them is an attack on the king himself. It's usually reserved for donors, servants of exceptional value, or he trailed off. Or what? Or those the king intends to make into companions. He said it carefully, watching her reaction. By protecting you as I have, I've essentially announced you as mine, whether that was my intention or not. Every vampire in this city now believes you're either my donor or my intended mate. Penelope's hand shook, brandy sloshing in the glass. But I'm not, no, he agreed quietly, you're not. Which makes the situation complicated, because I cannot withdraw my protection without it being seen as rejection, which would mark you as fair game for anyone who wants to strike at me. And I will not do that, so I'm stuck in this role whether I want it or not. I'm sorry. He sounded genuinely regretful. If I'd been thinking clearly that first night, I would have simply erased your memory and been done with it. Instead, I was curious. And then I was intrigued. And then I was invested. And now you're in danger because of my choices. Penelope drank the brandy in one burning swallow. I need to sleep. Can we talk about this tomorrow? Of course. He started to turn away, then stopped. Penelope, you're safe here. I give you my word. Nothing will harm you in this place. She believed him. That was the strangest part. Despite everything, the violence, the revelations, the impossible situation, she believed him. The guest suite was larger than her entire apartment. Penelope showered, washing away the hospital and the fear and the lingering scent of vampire violence. When she emerged, she found a silk nightgown laid out on the bed, along with an entire wardrobe of clothing in her exact size. She didn't want to think about how Vladimiros had known her measurements. She slept for 14 hours and woke to find breakfast waiting in the sitting room. Coffee, pastries, fresh fruit, a note in elegant handwriting. I've gone to handle some business. Make yourself comfortable, the residence is secure, you're safe. Penelope spent the day exploring the penthouse, marveling at the casual wealth on display. She found a library that could rival a university's, a music room with instruments that looked antique and priceless, a kitchen that was clearly rarely used, and everywhere small touches that suggested Vladimiros's age and experience, artwork from centuries past, books in dead languages, artifacts that belonged in museums. He returned at sunset looking tired in a way she hadn't seen before. How was your day, he asked, and the domesticity of the question in this utterly undomestic situation made her want to laugh. Strange. Surreal. I read 6 chapters of a book about vampire history that I found in your library, and I still can't tell if it's real or fiction, likely both. We have a tendency to embellish our own myths. He loosened his tie, another jarring glimpse of normalcy. I met with the council today. The situation is deteriorating faster than I anticipated. Constantine is making moves, gathering the old families, preparing for a confrontation. Who is Constantine? An ancient vampire older than me by several centuries. He believes in the old ways, humans as cattle, vampires as apex predators. No compromise or coexistence. He's been building opposition to my rule for decades, and now he's ready to make his challenge. Vladimiros poured himself a glass of something red. Blood, Penelope realized with a jolt. There will be violence, probably soon. And me? You remain under my protection. No one will touch you. He said it with absolute certainty. Though I should tell you, there's been talk about who you are to me, what you represent. What do they think I represent? His gaze met hers, intense and searching. Hope, change. Evidence that I've gone soft, that I value a human's life enough to risk political stability. Depending on who you ask, you're either a symbol of the new way forward or proof that I'm unfit to rule. Penelope set down her coffee cup with a shaky hand. That's a lot of weight for one random nurse to carry. You're not random, he said quietly. Not anymore. Perhaps you never were. The days that followed fell into a strange rhythm. Vladimiros left each evening to manage his territory and the growing tensions with the old guard. Penelope spent her days reading, exploring the penthouse, and occasionally speaking with the few vampires who served as Vladimiros's household staff. They were invariably polite, formal, and clearly protective of their king. One of them, a vampire woman named Marana, who appeared to be in her 30s but claimed to be nearly 200 years old, became something like a friend. He's different with you, Marana said one afternoon, helping Penelope arrange flowers that had been delivered. I've served King Vladimiros for 70 years and I've never seen him like this. Like what? Uncertain, vulnerable. He's always been decisive, controlled, absolutely sure of every move. But with you, he hesitates. He questions himself. Marana smiled slightly. It's good for him. He's been king so long he forgot what it feels like to be afraid of losing something. He barely knows me, Penelope protested. He knows you enough. Vampires don't love the way humans do, quickly, carelessly, frequently. When we love, it's absolute, consuming forever. Marana's eyes were knowing. And he's fighting it because he knows what it would mean for you, what he would be asking you to give up. I haven't said I feel anything for him. You didn't have to. You're still here, aren't you? That night, when Vladimiros returned, Penelope was waiting in the main living area. He looked surprised to see her still awake. It's nearly 3 in the morning. I know. I wanted to talk to you. She gestured to the sofa. Will you sit? He sat, maintaining careful distance. Always that distance, she'd noticed. Like he was afraid of getting too close. Marana said something today. About vampires and love. About how it's different for you. Penelope folded her hands in her lap. Is that true? Yes. Humans can love many times, can move on from heartbreak, can grow and change in their affections. Vampires typically love once, if at all. When we bond with someone, it's permanent, eternal. He looked away. It's part of why turning a human is taken so seriously. You're not just changing their biology, you're potentially binding them to you forever. And if a vampire loves a human who stays human, then they watch them age and die while they remain unchanged. It's painful. Most avoid it. Is that what you're doing? Avoiding it, his jaw tightened. Penelope, because I need to know what this is. She gestured between them. You've protected me, brought me into your home, risked political stability for me. But you barely touch me. You keep your distance. You treat me like I'm made of glass. And I don't know if that's because you care about me or because you're trying not to. Both, he said roughly. I'm trying not to care and failing miserably and keeping my distance because if I don't, I will want things I have no right to ask for. What if I'm asking too? The silence stretched between them, thick with tension. Finally Vladimiros spoke, his voice low and strained. You don't understand what you're asking. I am not human, Penelope. I will never be human again. I am centuries of violence and darkness barely contained in civilized form. I have killed more people than you've met in your entire life. I am cold to the touch. I survive on blood. I will outlive everything you love. This is not a fairy tale. There is no true love's kiss that makes me mortal again. I know what you are. Do you? He turned to face her fully and his eyes were crimson. Do you know what it means to be with me? You would have to choose stay human and eventually leave me through death or become what I am. Turn into a creature that needs blood to survive, that can never stand in sunlight again, that will watch everyone you currently love grow old and die. And either choice is agony. Either choice means loss. Or either choice means gaining something too, Penelope said. You talk about what I'd lose, but what about what I'd gain? Time, power, the ability to really make a difference. You said yourself that vampire society is changing. If I were turned, if I were truly part of your world, couldn't I help shape that change? You would do that? He sounded almost afraid. Give up your humanity for political influence. No, I would do it for you. The words came out steadier than she felt. I would do it because over the last few weeks I've felt more alive, more seen, more valued than I have in years. Because you listen when I talk about my work like it matters. Because you've shown me a hidden world full of wonder and terror. Because when I'm with you, I'm not just another overworked nurse barely scraping by. I'm someone worth protecting, worth caring about. Vladimiros made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. You should want more than that. You should want someone who can give you a normal life. Children, sunlight, growing old together. I don't want normal. I've been normal for 23 years and it's been exhausting and lonely and small. Penelope stood, crossed the distance between them, and took his cold hand in her warm one. I want this, you, if you want me, if I want you. His other hand came up to cup her face, gentle despite the strength she knew he possessed. Penelope, I have wanted you from the moment you ran toward me instead of a way to demand your identification back. I have wanted you through every conversation, every walk home, every glimpse of your courage and compassion. I want you so much it terrifies me, because I am a king and kings do not get to want things this badly without consequences. Then deal with the consequences, she whispered, and kiss me. He did. It was soft at first, tentative, like he was afraid she would break or flee. But when she pressed closer, her warm hands sliding into his cold white hair, he deepened the kiss with a hunger that spoke of weeks of restraint finally breaking. He was cold against her warmth, but it didn't feel wrong. It felt balanced, complementary. When they finally broke apart, his eyes were bright red, his fangs slightly visible. He looked more vampire than she'd ever seen him, and more beautiful for it. I cannot turn you yet, he said, slightly breathless. Not in the middle of this conflict. You would be too vulnerable during the transition. But when this is over, when Constantine is dealt with and things are stable, if you still want this, I will give you eternity. I'll still want it, Penelope said with certainty. Then you're mine. He pulled her close, tucking her against his chest. My chosen, my companion. And I am yours for as long as you'll have me. Forever then, forever, he agreed and kissed her again. The next week was strange and wonderful and terrifying. Penelope navigated the reality of being openly claimed by the Vampire King, which meant learning vampire politics, meeting members of Vladimiros's court, and understanding the very real danger posed by the old guard. Constantine's forces were growing bolder, testing boundaries, staging attacks on vampires loyal to Vladimiros. It will come to a head soon, Marana told her, helping her dress for a formal court gathering. Constantine won't wait much longer. He'll challenge Vladimiros directly, likely in front of the full court. Winner takes control of the territory. And if Vladimiros loses, then you'll be killed immediately as his claimed companion. Constantine won't allow you to live. Marana said it matter-of-factly while fastening a necklace around Penelope's throat. But King Vladimiros won't lose. He's the strongest vampire I've ever encountered, and he's fighting for more than territory now. He's fighting for you. The court gathering was held in an underground ballroom beneath the city, accessible through tunnels that Penelope hadn't known existed. The space was magnificent, vaulted ceilings, crystal chandeliers, centuries of vampire history carved into the stone walls. And everywhere, vampires, dozens of them, pale and beautiful and deadly. Vladimiros kept her close to his side, one hand possessively at her waist. She wore a gown he'd made for her, deep crimson silk that matched his eyes, cut elegantly but modestly. His message was clear. This human is mine, she is valued, and she will be respected. Most of the vampires bowed politely. Some stared with open curiosity. A few looked openly hostile. And then Constantine arrived. He was ancient in a way that went beyond age. His white hair fell past his shoulders. His face was beautiful and terrible, and his eyes were black as pitch. When he looked at Penelope, she felt like prey being sized up by a predator. So this is the human who's captured our king's attention, Constantine said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent ballroom. How quaint. Vladimiros always did have a sentimental streak. Careful, Constantine. Vladimiros's voice was deadly calm. You're speaking of my chosen companion? You're chosen? Constantine laughed, harsh and mocking. You would elevate a human to such status? Give her the protection and privileges of vampire royalty? It's worse than I thought. You truly have forgotten what we are. I remember perfectly what we are. We are survivors, adapters. We've thrived for millennia by evolving with the times, not clinging to outdated practices that will see us hunted to extinction. Vladimiros moved slightly, placing himself more firmly between Constantine and Penelope. Your way leads to war with humanity, a war we would lose. Better to die as predators than live as their lapdogs. Constantine's gaze raked over Penelope with contempt. You pollute our bloodlines with your new ways, weaken our strength with your compassion. You're unfit to rule, and I challenge you for leadership of this territory. The room erupted in murmurs. Vladimir Rose's hand tightened on Penelope's waist. You're certain? A formal challenge witnessed by the court? I am tomorrow night, the old cathedral on 6th Street. You and I, no interference from our followers. Winner claims the territory and all within it. Constantine's smile was cruel, including your little human pet. Penelope felt Vladimiros tense, felt the rage rolling off him in waves. But his voice remained controlled. I accept your challenge, tomorrow night. Constantine inclined his head mockingly and swept out of the ballroom, taking a portion of the gathered vampires with him. Those who remained looked troubled. Vladimiros turned to Penelope, his face carefully blank. I need to speak with my advisors. Marana will take you back to the residence. Vlad, please. His eyes met hers and she saw fear in them. Real, genuine fear. I need you safe. I need to know you're protected while I handle this. She wanted to argue, to insist on staying by his side, but the look in his eyes stopped her. She nodded, let Marana guide her away, and tried not to think about tomorrow night. Back at the penthouse, Penelope couldn't settle. She paced, tried to read, attempted to sleep. Finally, near dawn, Vladimiros returned. He looked exhausted, stressed in a way she'd never seen. Tell me the truth, she said without preamble. Can you beat him? I don't know. His honesty was more frightening than any lie would have been. He's older, which means potentially more powerful. But I'm a better fighter, more tactical. It could go either way. And if you lose, you won't be harmed immediately. They'll keep you alive long enough to cause me maximum suffering before I die. Then they'll kill you too, probably publicly, as an example of what happens to humans who presume to stand with vampires. He crossed to her, pulled her into his arms. I'm sorry. I should have erased your memory that first night. Should have kept you out of this world. Should have protected you from my own selfishness. Stop, Penelope said firmly. I chose this, I chose you, and I don't regret it. You might tomorrow. No. She pulled back enough to look at him. Win or lose, I won't regret loving you. His eyes widened. You love me? Of course I love you. How could I not? You're brave and honorable, and you've shown me more care in a few weeks than most people have shown me in my entire life. You're a vampire king and you're terrified of losing a human nurse. How could I not love you, Penelope? His voice broke. If I don't survive tomorrow, you will. You have to. Because I'm not done with you yet. I want eternity, remember? You promised me eternity. I did. And I will give it to you if I can. He kissed her, desperate and passionate and full of everything they hadn't said. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. Stay here tomorrow night. Don't come to the cathedral. I need to know you're safe. I'll stay. She lied. She had no intention of staying. The old cathedral on 6th Street had been abandoned for decades, but the vampire court had gathered in its ruins like it was a throne room. Penelope arrived just before midnight, slipping in through a side entrance, staying in the shadows where the gathered vampires wouldn't notice her. Marana had tried to stop her, but Penelope had been adamant. If Vladimiros was going to fight for their future, she was going to witness it. The cathedral's interior was lit by hundreds of candles, casting dancing shadows across broken pews and crumbling walls. A circle had been cleared in the center of the nave, the fighting ground. Vladimiros stood on one side, dressed simply in black, his white hair pulled back, his expression calm. Constantine stood opposite, looking confident and cruel. An older vampire woman stepped forward, some kind of arbiter, Penelope guessed. The challenge has been witnessed. The terms are clear. Combat until one party yields or is destroyed. The victor claims leadership of this territory and all disputed resources. Do both parties consent? I consent, Vladimiros said. I consent, Constantine echoed. Then begin. They moved so fast Penelope could barely track it. One moment they were standing still, the next they were a blur of violence, striking and blocking and moving with inhuman speed. The sound of impact echoed through the cathedral, flesh hitting flesh, bodies slamming into stone. Constantine was strong, his ancient power evident in every blow. But Vladimiros was faster, more precise, turning Constantine's strength against him. They fought with the skill of centuries, each knowing the other's style, each seeking weakness. Blood splattered across the cathedral floor. Penelope couldn't tell whose. The fight went on for what felt like hours but was probably minutes. Both vampires were wounded now, healing slower than they should, their ancient bodies struggling to repair damage. They broke apart, circling each other, breathing hard despite not needing air. You're weakening, Constantine taunted. Too much time spent playing human with your pet, you've gone soft. I've found something worth fighting for, Vladimiros shot back. All you have is pride and fear of change. Constantine snarled and attacked again, even faster than before. He caught Vladimiros across the chest, claws tearing deep. Vladimiros stumbled, and Constantine pressed his advantage, driving him back toward the wall. Penelope's breath caught. He was losing. But then Vladimiros twisted, using Constantine's momentum against him, slamming the ancient vampire into the stone wall hard enough to crack it. Before Constantine could recover, Vladimiros drove a wooden stake through his shoulder, pinning him in place. Yield, Vladimiros demanded. Never. Constantine tried to pull free, but the stake held. Then I'm sorry. Vladimiros's hand shot forward, piercing Constantine's chest, closing around his heart. I didn't want this. I wanted evolution, not execution. But you've left me no choice. Wait. Konstantine's eyes widened, real fear showing for the first time. Vladimiros hesitated. For a long moment, the entire cathedral held its breath. Then Penelope saw the knife in Konstantine's free hand, moving toward Vladimiros's exposed side. She screamed a warning, but it was too late. The blade plunged into Vladimiros's ribs, except Vladimiros had seen it too. His hand closed, and he ripped Konstantine's heart from his chest. The ancient vampire crumbled to ash, centuries of existence ending in an instant. Vladimiros staggered, the knife still embedded in his side. He pulled it free with a grunt, already healing but clearly weakened. When he turned to the assembled court, his voice was strong. The challenge is concluded. I claim leadership by right of combat. Does anyone else wish to dispute my rule? Silence. Then one by one the vampires knelt. Penelope ran toward him, not caring about vampire politics or propriety. She reached him just as his knees buckled, catching him as best she could. You're hurt. I'll heal. I just need. He looked at her and his eyes were soft. You're here. I told you to stay home. I lied. I'm not sorry. He laughed weakly, then kissed her forehead. Of course you did, my brave, impossible human. Marana appeared with several other vampires, helping support Vladimiros. We need to get you somewhere safe to recover, my king. Home, Vladimiros said, his eyes not leaving Penelope's face. Take us home. The next few days were tense as Vladimiros recovered and consolidated power. Konstantine's followers either bent the knee or left the territory, and the vampire court slowly stabilized under a single undisputed leader. Penelope stayed by Vladimiros's side, learning the intricacies of vampire governance, meeting with various faction leaders, making it clear she was not a temporary curiosity but a permanent fixture in their king's life. They respect you, Vladimiros said one evening, a week after the challenge. He was fully healed now, the wounds from the fight mere memories. My court, they see your strength. They see your choice, Penelope corrected. I'm only strong because you've given me the position to be. No, you were always strong. I simply gave you the platform to show it. He pulled her close, and she settled against him, marveling at how natural it felt despite the temperature difference between them. Are you ready? She knew what he was asking. They'd been discussing it for days, the turning, the transformation, the point of no return. I'm ready. It will hurt. The change. Your human body dying, your vampire nature emerging. It will be the most painful experience of your life, I know. You'll be vulnerable for days while your body adjusts, and then you'll need to feed, which is its own challenge. His hand stroked her hair. And you'll outlive everyone you currently know. Your family, your friends, the children at the hospital, you'll watch them all grow old and die. I know that too. She turned to look up at him. I've thought about all of it. The cost and the gain. And I choose this. I choose you. I choose eternity. Then I will give it to you. He kissed her softly. Tonight. They went to his private chambers, the windowless room deep beneath the penthouse where he slept during daylight hours. It was intimate and dark, lit only by candles, the bed draped in heavy fabrics. Lie down, he said gently. Try to relax. Penelope lay back, her heart racing. Vladimiros knelt beside the bed, taking her hand. I love you. I need you to know that, before we begin. I love you more than I've loved anyone in 6 centuries of existence. You've reminded me what it means to be more than a king. You've given me hope for a different future. I love you too, she whispered. Make me yours, forever. He bent to her throat and she felt his fangs pierce her skin. The pain was sharp but bearable at first, his venom entering her bloodstream, spreading warmth through her body. She felt him drinking, felt her life essence flowing into him, felt herself weakening. Just when she thought she might pass out, he stopped. Now you drink from me, he said, biting his own wrist until blood welled up. He pressed it to her lips. Drink, Penelope, take what you need. His blood was cold and sweet and powerful. She drank, feeling it course through her, mixing with his venom, starting the change. Her body began to burn, every cell restructuring, dying and being reborn as something new. Vladimiros held her through it, whispering words of comfort in languages she didn't understand, cooling her burning skin with his cold touch. The pain was excruciating. Exactly as he'd warned, her human body fighting and losing against the vampire transformation. She screamed, she wept, she begged for it to stop. He held her through all of it, steady and sure, his presence the only anchor she had. And then, after hours that felt like years, the pain began to recede. Her senses sharpened, she could hear conversations from floors below, smell blood from miles away, see details in the darkness that had been invisible before. Her body felt different, stronger, changed fundamentally. Open your eyes, Vladimiros said softly. She did. The world looked different, sharper, clearer, more vivid. And when she looked at Vladimiros, she saw him in a way she never had before. Not just beautiful, but radiant with power, his ancient nature visible in ways her human eyes couldn't have perceived. How do you feel? He asked. Hungry, she admitted, and felt the fangs in her mouth for the first time. He smiled. I expected that. Come. I'll teach you to feed properly. The next weeks were a whirlwind of adjustment. Learning to control her new strength and speed. Learning to feed from donated blood without losing control. Learning vampire politics and history and her new role as the king's companion. Learning what it meant to be immortal. But through it all, Vladimiros was there. Patient, teaching, loving. And slowly Penelope built a new life. She couldn't return to the hospital, not as what she'd been. But she found other ways to help, establishing medical programs for humans under vampire protection, advocating for better treatment of donors, using her new position to improve conditions for both species. The vampire court grew to respect her, not just as Vladimiros's chosen mate, but as a leader in her own right. The human woman who'd become a vampire by choice, who'd faced down the old guard and helped usher in a new era. 3 months after her turning, Vladimiros took her back to the penthouse rooftop, specially treated so they could stand there safely even after dark. The city spread out below them, glittering and alive. Any regrets? He asked, pulling her close. Penelope thought about her old life, the exhaustion, the loneliness, the feeling of being invisible. Thought about her new life, the power, the purpose, the love of a vampire king. Thought about the eternity stretching before them, full of possibility. Not one, she said, and kissed him. I was terrified that night in the alley, he admitted. When I told you to run, I meant it as protection. But part of me was also afraid you'd see what I really was and never want to see me again. Afraid that by saving you, I'd lose you. You could never lose me. Not then, not now, not ever. She smiled against his lips. Though I did think you were threatening me at first, I know. You looked absolutely furious when you marched across the street to confront me outside the hospital. His laugh was warm. I think that was the moment I realized I was in trouble. Most humans run from vampires. You demanded answers. I've always been terrible at following sensible advice. Thank everything unwholesome for that. He spun her gently, looking out over their city. This is ours now. Our territory, our people, our future to shape. What do you want to do with eternity, Penelope? She thought about it, about all the time stretching before them, all the possibilities. I want to make a difference. Real change, not just for vampires but for humans too. Better protections, better laws, true coexistence. Then that's what we'll do. Together. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. My queen. I thought you didn't like titles. I'm making an exception. You've earned it. He turned her to face him, his expression serious. I mean it, Penelope. I want you to rule beside me, not just stand behind me. Equal partners in everything. Partners, she agreed, and felt the rightness of it settle into her bones. Below them, the city hummed with life, human and vampire, coexisting in the delicate balance they'd fought to create. There would be more challenges ahead, more conflicts to resolve, more changes to navigate, but they would face it all together. Penelope had entered that alley weeks ago as a tired, lonely nurse with no idea that monsters were real. She'd emerged from it on a path that would lead her here, immortal, powerful, loved beyond measure, with eternity stretching before her. And when Vladimiros kissed her again, soft and sweet and full of promise, she knew she'd made the right choice. Every single impossible, terrifying, wonderful choice that had led her to this moment. I love you, she said against his lips. And I love you. For eternity. For eternity, she agreed. They stood on that rooftop as the night deepened around them, two immortals watching over their city, bound together by choice and love and the promise of forever. The warning that had started it all, that single word, run, had led Penelope not away from danger but toward the greatest adventure of her life. She'd mistaken his warning for a threat. He'd let her run, knowing she wouldn't get far, planning to save her life. Neither of them had expected to save each other instead. But that was the thing about love, Penelope thought as Vladimiros held her close. It didn't follow plans or expectations. It simply was powerful and transformative and utterly worth every risk. And their story, their love, their eternity, was just beginning. The end.